Good afternoon everyone, welcome to our small footprint. My name is Nyssa, and if you're new here, we are a family of 8 who live off-grid in Australia. Video today is more of my food prep. Now, I should have checked before I came out, but I think we're on day 5 of food prep. So I do a 6-weekly grocery haul, and at the end of that 6-weekly grocery haul, I bring it all home and I unpack it all and I show you all what I bought. And then for the next 7 to 10 days, I try and do daily videos. I record every day, but this month hasn't been necessarily released every day. But I record every day of what I do in that next 7 to 10 days with all the food that I buy to make sure that it's going to last us the 6 weeks and beyond. Some of the stuff that I buy ends up on my shelves and will be used over months. Some of it ends up on my shelves but will be used in the 6 weeks. Some of it goes in the freezer. Some of it gets eaten straight away. So that's sort of what most people ask when you talk about doing a 6-weekly grocery shop. A lot of people ask, well, how do you make it work? How do you make it last? How do you get through that 6 weeks? There is lean times at the end of the 6 weeks, as always, but we have plenty to get through, just not necessarily what we would choose to eat. So this is, as I said, I'm a little unsure. I should have checked day 4 or 5 of food prep, and I have no idea what day this was. I'm a little lost. Normally I try and film the day and release that the day that I filmed the next day, and then that way I keep on top of, you know, the numbers of the days, what day it is, what I did the day before and all that sort of thing. This month has been a little bit harder because I had my secondary fridge that I have has carked it. I don't know, I think it might be a thermostat issue, but we can't seem to resolve it. So normally we would store all our excess produce that we buy, some of the stuff that we buy in bulk, in there before we had to process it, but I've had to process things faster than normal. We also have an issue with our secondary solar array, which is the array that we're sitting under at the moment. The inverter that we use for it got blown, user error, child left a outdoor power spike, one of those waterproof ones, but they have to be spiked into the ground. Lying down, it filled with water and it caused issues. It blew the safety switch before the inverter, but it also appears to have blown the inverter. We're still working on that, but we need to replace it. So there's a few bits and pieces that have been going on this month post the grocery haul that have just caused some issues. The garden still is just abysmal too, which doesn't help. I'm trying to put time and effort into getting something going, but it's not working. So there's that as well. And then there's all the usual stuff, all the usual things of just working as we do from home, homeschooling 6 kids and all the rest of it. So this month has just been a little bit higgledy-piggledy, and it's coming into Easter. Not that we celebrate Easter, but at the same time it's a good excuse for chocolate. So we've been doing some baking in relation to that as well. So anyway, I've squirreled enough. Let's get to today's video, and I have no idea what I'm talking about. I have my notes in my hand and I just wrote them out and I've kind of forgotten again, so we will, you know, cover it together. So come along and see what I got done on this day of food prep post the 6-week grocery haul. Thanks guys. Alrighty, so started the day off with the hot cross buns. So last night I'd mixed the dough up together and I'd put it in the fridge or on the bench or wherever to proof overnight. I think I put it in the broken fridge to proof. So the problem with hot cross buns can be that it has cinnamon in it, and cinnamon can slow your fermentation of your dough too. So you have to be aware of that when you're making something that has cinnamon in it. Cinnamon, garlic's another one that does something similar. It slows down the fermentation of the dough. So this can take quite a while to proof, and you're going to proof it twice. So you really need to read the dough with that. So the next morning, the dough looked good when I did it, but I think this is mid-morning. I didn't look at the timestamp, but I don't think it was straight away. I think I pulled it out of that fridge and left it on the bench until mid-morning before it looked appropriate for me to be splitting. Once it looked good, you sort of want a 50% sort of a rise at least. Then I pulled it out and I divided it up and shaped it into individual buns. So I got 12 buns out of this batch of dough. It is just spiced dough. There's no dried fruit or anything else in it. It's just the spices. I split it into the 12 balls and got them nice and tight like you do with any sort of a soup bun or a hamburger bun or anything else. You want a nice tight skin on the top, tuck it all underneath and put it in the tray to proof again. You want them to be nice and light and fluffy and filling that tray, and once they've done that, that's when you stick them in the oven. So Once they're filling that tray, they've got a good size to them, they're all sort of evenly sized and they're all sort of touching and things like that, that's about when I start to bake them. And I tend to bake most of my stuff from a cold oven because I use my hooded barbecue for all my baking. So I tend to just stick it in the barbecue, turn the barbecue on, go from there. They take around about 25 minutes at around about 180, but I'm cooking on a barbecue, so things can be a little different for me for baking. So that's what we're going with at the moment. And these are sourdough, and I was pretty happy with this round. I'm just going to try some different flavors over the next few days. So for dinner tonight, Darryl and I are going to have these pork baby back ribs that I bought. These are an expensive treat, and there's something that Darryl and I have and the kids don't. I think it would be wasted on them. I think it would be pointless. It's an expensive cut in the scope. It isn't. I think they're only like $16 a kilo or something, and it's not excessively expensive, but it's expensive in the scope of what I normally buy per kilo meat for, and I just don't think the kids would appreciate it, so it'd be wasted on them. So all I do is I buy the smallest pack I can get. So this was just a $20 pack of ribs, and we smoke it just for Darryl and I, and the kids I think they had bolognese that night. I do the 3-2-1 method with the ribs, so I coat the ribs in the sweet rub. This is the same sweet rub that I used on the chicken yesterday. I coat the ribs in the sweet rub, and it goes into the smoker for 3 hours at a low temp and that's all. And then I do the next step. So it goes in there for 3 hours the first time on the rack, open on the rack with the rub on it at the low temperature to cook, and then I'll come back to it afterwards. Once the hot cross buns, though they are not cross buns because I didn't put crosses on them, were cooked, I glazed them. So I used some of the lemon chung that I had made in the last month that I made it with the lemons that I got last month. So I managed to get a box of lemons last month and this month, which has been really awesome because I've got heaps of lemon juice frozen, which is great. I can make lemon curd from it, lemon cakes, just use the lemon juice. You can't use it for canning because you can't guarantee the pH of it, but for flavored things, for marinades, anything like that, it's great. So I made lemon chung last month, which is basically just slices of lemon and maceration in sugar. So it's a lemon syrup. So I used that to glaze the top of the hot cross buns because, as I said, they're just a spiced bun. There's no fruit or anything in them. But I would like to try and think about putting some lemon rind or juice in the dough at some point. So that's one of the flavors I'm going to try. But for the moment, I just glaze them with that lemon chung while they're warm, and it gives it that sticky, shiny top to them. I got to work on lemons. So as I said, I got a box of lemons last month, a box of lemons this month. So I'm working on the lemons for this month. I use a potato peeler and I just peel the rind off the outside of the lemons, just nice and gently so that you're not getting too much of the pith. You just want the coloured rind, and I just take it off in strips. I'm not too pedantic about it. I just want to take enough strips off each one that I'm collecting some rind from each lemon. Once I do that, I slice them in half and then I juice them. So I'm still using my faithful Kmart juicer here at the moment. It has lasted well, and it's a good position for doing it. It also has 2 size reamers, so it has a wider one and a narrower one, and these lemons are quite small. They're also seedless, which is kind of interesting. I'm not sure what variety they are, but they're a seedless lemon. But they're quite small, so having that smaller reamer for the juicer is ideal. I did get gifted, and I'm going to apologise because I cannot remember who gifted it to me. I do have it written down though. The KitchenAid attachment for the juicer, but I need a lower table because using the juicing attachment on the KitchenAid, it's too high while it's up on the bench. So I need the KitchenAid to be lower to be able to get the pressure behind the lemon, but it definitely has a better reaming action. Like the spinning action is a lot better. The Kmart one will stop if you put too much pressure, it's on the wrong angle or things like that. My neighbour actually lent me a commercial style one. It's like tomorrow or something she lent it. You will see it in passing in some of the things, and it's fantastic, but it's made more for oranges, so I had a bit of trouble because the lemons were a bit small, so we had issues with that too. So the old Kmart faithful just ended up being what I used. So I just juice them all, and then I use the juice throughout the day, or I freeze it in ice cube trays or whatever I do with it. I then decided to make some lemon curd because I had just got all this fresh lemon juice, so I use my Thermomix to make my lemon curd. I use coconut oil instead of butter, and I just use raw sugar that I grind up. So it's just raw sugar, lemon juice, coconut oil, and cooked in the Thermomix. This is one of the things that I really love a Thermomix for, is the kind of thing that you would normally have to mix, and if you didn't mix properly, oh, sorry, it's got eggs in it too, obviously. If you didn't mix it appropriately, your eggs can scramble, and then you've got lumpy, and then you have to strain it through something to be able to get those lumps out and things like that. The way the Thermomix spins and heats at the same time, it's just perfect. You just throw it all in, set the time, the timer, and the speed, and walk away, and you can hear the change. It gets nice and thick, and when it's done, it's perfectly smooth and ready. So it is one of the absolute things that I love about a Thermomix. I know it's a simple thing, and definitely not, you know, the highlight of that cost of a machine, but it is a wonderful thing, a wonderful function to be able to do custards and lemon curds and all that sort of thing in the machine, and just throw all the ingredients in at once, turn it on, and walk away until it buzzes you, and it's perfect every time. So I made a big double batch of lemon curd to use for whatever. You can never have enough lemon curd, in my opinion. I also then, because I just made the lemon curd and the hot cross buns were nice and warm, served myself up a hot cross bun with some lemon curd on it. I showed that on Instagram and Facebook, because it just looked so lovely. So yes, I served up this lovely, warm, spiced hot cross bun with a very generous slathering of lemon curd, and it was delicious. Probably very unorthodox to do lemon curd with a hot cross bun, but we don't care. After all that, I was looking up some recipes for lemon cakes, because I really like lemon flavour, and I make a really nice orange cake, but I've got a whole bunch of oranges canned for that. I don't know if I've done that on video before, but I have canned oranges that were boiled, pureed, and put in jars, and then I make an whole orange and almond cake, which is delicious. But I really like lemon cake. Lemon cake tends to be a lighter, fluffier sort of a sponge with lemon flavours, but all the ones I've tried aren't very lemony. What's the point of a lemon cake that's not very lemony? So I did a whole bunch of Googling, came across a few lemon and coconut combined flavours, and thought that sounded nice, especially because we have to use coconut-based products as our milks and things like that. So what I did was I sort of made up the recipe as I went along, using some inspiration from various different places. Now, I wanted to use plenty of rind, plenty of lemon juice, all that sort of thing. The first iteration that I made, I realised when I checked it in the oven that I had forgotten to put any baking powder in it. And so it was a very dense slab of cake. So as soon as I realised that, I made up a second batch, which I didn't film because I'd already filmed me making the first one. Made a second batch up, and then when I was pouring it into the pan, I licked my finger when I was putting the Thermomix away, like when I'd already cleaned the bowl out and stuff, was putting the Thermomix in the sink, and I licked my finger to taste the batter and realised I didn't add any sugar. So I put it all back out of the pan and added sugar and put it back in the pan and cooked that one as well. So we ended up with one that was completely inedible and a second one as well, which I'll show you a bit later on. But yeah, so what I want to do is I want a lemon coconut cake that tastes like lemon and is a nice fluffy sort of a spongy texture, and yeah, we're working on it. I'm really lucky. I've got so many people that I could make a cake a day and they'd be eaten every day and it would be all good. So reduced sugar, obviously, because everything I do has some reduced sugar in it. It doesn't need to be sweet. We're not real fans of sweet here. So anyway. After the 3 hours, the ribs came out of the smoker, and then we wrap them in foil. So we wrap them in foil and we put some apple juice or apple cider vinegar or anything like that in with them, some moisture and a bit of butter or ghee or some sort of a fat. Then we wrap them up in the foil and they go back into the smoker for the 2 hours. So that's the second part of the 3-2-1. Your 3 hours initially, your 2 hours once you've got the apple cider vinegar or apple juice or whatever, your liquid in there, the braising stage, it goes for 2 hours and goes back in the smoker at low temps. The other thing I had to get done was avocados. So I got a whole box of avocados, and they've been sitting on the shelf, and as we have discussed before on here when we were talking about the avocados, you look at them and they're hard, and then they're rotten. So I had a quick look at the box, and there was quite a few that were well and truly needing to be done. So I decided to pull the box out, pull all the soft ones out, and get some stuff done with them. So all I did was I peeled them. I just used a spoon to scoop them out of the skins, and I pulled the pits out, dipped the whatever came out in lemon juice, and stuck it in a bowl to start with. So I just went through all the avocados that really needed to be used, scooped all the chunks out, dipped them in lemon juice, and stuck them in a bowl to use. The second lemon cake came out about now. As I said, I didn't show you the first one. I just didn't film it, but I fed it to the chickens anyway. It was just dense. There was no leavening agent in it. So the second one's come out, and I decided that I had that little bit of lemon chung left in the measuring cup that I'd used to glaze the hot cross buns, and because I'd used a brush in there, I didn't want to put it back in the jar. So I just used whatever was left in that little measuring cup and put it over the top of the cake, because it's a lemon cake and adding more lemon's never going to be an issue. So when I got it out, it's probably a bit warm. I probably got it out a little bit warm, but the liner that I'm using obviously isn't meant for a 20 centimeter cake tin either. So it was impacting the sides of the cake a little bit, and when I pulled apart, it crumbled a little bit. So the cake's texture was a little crumbly. It did improve as it cooled, but it was a little bit crumbly to begin with. Darryl and everyone highly approved of the flavour though. It was lovely and lemony, it was light, it was spongy, it wasn't too sweet, and it was great. That bit of coconut in there and stuff was great. So I will make another one and keep on going, and if I can get it perfect, I will share the recipe, but it was pretty good. And as I said, I'm really lucky that I could make a cake a day, and so long as it tastes alright, which generally speaking most of what I make does, then I've got plenty of people willing to eat it each day for me, so I can keep on testing this. I do feel sorry sometimes. I wonder what people who want to test recipes who don't have large families do. What do they do with all that food? Because, you know, you have to repeat make it, and it's edible. So anyway, I was thinking about that the other day. We ate that one. It was perfectly good, and I will keep on going, and I'll let you know how I go with that. The ribs came out after the 2 hours, so they've been in the braising mixture for the 2 hours, and then I pulled them out. I unwrapped them again, drained off the excess liquid, and then I slathered it with the apple butter barbecue sauce. I probably should have used a little bit more sauce on these once we've finished with it. It could have done with a bit more sauce. But other than that, we slather it with the apple butter barbecue sauce, and it goes back into the smoker for 1 hour, or until the internal temperature reaches the appropriate temperature. So that's the whole process. This is a 3-2-1. 3 hours in the smoker as is, 2 hours in the braising liquid, and then an hour with the barbecue sauce to finish it off. So once it got to the right internal temperature, that's when we pulled it out again. Next thing I had to do was I minced up a whole bunch of the elephant garlic. So I used the Thermomix for that. I cut it up, and then I just minced it up nice and fine in the Thermomix. And then I added the avocado. So I realized the avocado had to be done in quite small batches so that you weren't whipping it, but you were getting all the larger pieces. So in small batches, I added parts of the bowl of the avocado to the Thermomix bowl to mix through the garlic, and then I put it all into another bowl and mixed it all through well after that. So small batches, the avocado went in, got turboed a few times so that it was chunked up. There was some smooth bits, some chunky bits and that sort of thing, and then added to the bowl. Definitely have to do it in small batches in the Thermomix. If I added too much, it'd just really cream the bottom layer, and the top layer, the chunks would stay in half slices and things like that. So once I got it all done, I stuck it into another big bowl, and then I tasted it, and I added some salt and a bit more lemon juice to taste. Obviously lime juice would be better here, but I don't have any limes, so that's, you know, that's the way it is. So lemon juice it is. And so a bit of salt, and again, people add all sorts of things to there. This isn't really a guacamole, it's really just lemon, garlic, avocado. But if it sort of is a guacamole, you know, anyway. Lots of people add lots of things like onions, capsicums, tomatoes, all sorts of things to this. We're not real big fans of that sort of thing with the avocado. We're just having the avocado with a bit of garlic and lemon juice and salt, and that will be all we will add to it. I'm going to try freezing it a couple of different ways. So I have just frozen it in chunks, dipped them in lemon juice and then just flash froze them on a tray and stuck them in a Ziploc bag, and it worked perfectly. I haven't really defrosted any of it for use of anything though. I've just used it frozen. I've used it frozen, whipped up in like smoothies and puddings and things like that, but not defrosted to use on something. So what I did was I put some in the big gallon Ziploc bags, and then I created creases in the middle of the bag so that you had, so it was sort of 2 cups worth into this bag, and then I put 3 creases in it, which means that there's about half a cup between each crease, and theoretically I should be able to snap that half cup measure off out of the bag and leave the rest in the freezer. Now my only concern is that when you're defrosting it, is it going to brown when you're defrosting it? Is the avocado in the process of defrosting going to go brown? There's plenty of lemon in it, but at the same time I'm not sure. So I also froze some in just half cup pucks, just like pucks on flash froze them on the tray, and they've all frozen up nice and green because this was a couple of days ago now, and I will show in a future video how it's frozen up. And then I'm going to make nachos for dinner probably tomorrow night, I think, which will be a few days away for you guys, but probably tomorrow night, and I will defrost some for that. But I am concerned about the defrosting process. But I did order some more small Ziploc and silicone bags and things like that, and I think maybe if I put the piece that I'm defrosting into one of those and seal it up before putting it in the fridge, then it will defrost better. And I only want to pull it out half an hour, 45 minutes before we're going to use it, because it doesn't freeze solid, so it goes soft quite quickly. So I don't know, I'm going to see how we go with using it from frozen, whether I can defrost it and then use it just like guacamole, whether it's, even if it discolors though, mind you, we're only serving it to ourselves, so even if it's got some browning, as long as it tastes fine, it doesn't matter. So we'll see, and I'll bring you along when I do it and I'll show you, because yeah, I'm going to make nachos tomorrow night. I think I'm going to make some cashew cheese sauce and some nachos, and we'll use avocado on it and stuff, though I think I'm out of sour cream for myself, but that's a bit of a pity, but that's fine. And I'll bring you along for that and we'll see how it goes. The ribs I hadn't shown you the ribs yet. I also had to pull the bananas out of the freezer to be able to use the space for the avocados. So we'd flash frozen 2 big trays of whole pieces of banana, so I had to pull them out to be able to use those trays for the avocado. So they go into Ziploc bags into the freezer for use for smoothies and things like that. The kids actually put these on the trays for me and put them in whole, which isn't my favorite. I much prefer them to be in thirds or halves, because it works better in the Thermomix if they're a bit smaller, but it's fine. We'll just let them soften a little bit before we add them to things. But the main use for them is smoothies, so that's fine. They were frozen, put in the chest freezer now that they're in a Ziploc bag and frozen. We use the fridge that isn't working, the freezer above it is working fine, which is great, because that little freezer we just use for ice or for flash freezing basically. So it's 2 shelves, and all we do is we leave it mostly empty, and we freeze the smoothie pops when we do it in there. So all the molds with all the smoothie pops on a tray, or trays of fruit that needs to be flash frozen, or ice cube trays in that freezer. That's all that's really used for. But it's great to have, because the other upright freezer never has shelves empty. For this sort of purpose, it's always chock-a-block, so not having that top freezer is going to be a bit of an issue when we decide that the fridge is unfixable and we retire it. Not having the fridge is going to suck too, but I don't know what I want to replace it with, or whether I want to spend the money on replacing it or try and do it. I don't know what I'm doing about it yet. But so that freezer though is ideal for flash freezing on trays. It fits the half cookie sheets well, 1 on each tray with a little bit of space on the side, so you can put a couple of ice trays in there too, which I've been doing with the lemon juice and stuff as well. So anyway, the ribs were done. They were fall apart. You could pull the bone straight out of the middle of the ribs, which is the ideal that you want when you're cooking them this way. And we had them, I think we had them with mashed veg, to be honest, but I didn't film it. But that's how I like my ribs normally, is with a bit of extra barbecue sauce, and mashed potato and frozen, and like we use frozen steamed veg. That's, you know, that's the best way to eat them, or with mac and cheese, but I didn't make any mac and cheese, so you know, I'm pretty sure we had mash and veg. So thank you for joining me again today, guys, and I will see you again tomorrow, more than likely, with the next day of food prep. Alrighty guys, thanks.